One of the poses that I see the most issues with in terms of alignment, in terms of safe alignment, um, is Chaturanga Dandasana, four-limbed staff pose. It's an amazing posture because it requires so much full body participation. It works the core muscles, it works biceps and triceps. It stabilizes the shoulders with the rhomboids and the serratus anterior, and even a little bit of the trapezius in the mid spine. It works the front of your thighs, it works your calves. So your whole body is all in on this posture. The main contraindication for most people is if there is wrist issues, because there's a fair amount of pressure on the wrist, and the angle of the shoulder and the elbow and the wrist can be hard for some people. So I'll give you a solve for that. But the biggest thing that I see people doing in Chaturanga is, now I have these great blocks here, but if I'm not going to use the blocks for a second, is coming from plank or from a down dog to plank and kind of tipping forward, dropping into the pose. The shoulders drop down, the butt is up high, or an excessive rounding through the pose when it's really a straight spine. So if you're taking Tadasana, mountain pose, as your blueprint, the only difference between plank, so plank is mountain pose on your hands and your toes, would be to bend the elbows straight back. Now, for many of us, we wing the elbows out to the side. One way that you can solve that, and I don't love this because it can feel a little claustrophobic, is you make a loop with your strap. And I'll show you from hands and knees. This keeps my elbows from going out to the side. It pulls my elbows straight back, and it gives you a little shelf to rest on. But that's a little aggressive on the arms. It's claustrophobic. If you can't practice on your hands, or you're just not at the stage for this level of physical strength, you can always come to a wall, establish plank pose at the wall, and then practice bending your elbows towards your ribs and pushing away. And you could do this quite a bit, many, many reps, or you could even simply hold the pose here. I might even want to walk my hands a little lower. So this is a way of building strength. You could also place your hands a little lower on a chair. Let's say this is a chair, and then I can get a little bit more work in my arms here. So I've got a little more gravity coming down on me, and that's another nice way to build some strength there. If you do have wrist issues, then try widening your hands and turning your hands out. That might fix it. But let's work with the blocks here so that you can get a sense of really just how low you're going. So I'm starting in a down dog. I think I have this measured out properly. And if I want to be restorative, I can just place my forehead here and forget about doing Chaturanga Dandasana. Or I shift forward to plank pose, and then I lower down to the blocks. Now I'm supported and I can find the posture. I'm not letting the shoulders droop, keeping the shoulders back. You want to broaden the chest and the upper back. So it's not just everything squeezing to the midline, but there's a drawing the shoulders out and apart so the chest stays quite open. And this way you're working the chest without collapsing the chest. So it's great for posture. And I'm not leading with my chin. My gaze is slightly out so that my neck stays long. And then ideally you'd be able to press right back to plank and then to down dog. So that's a great way to hold the pose for a few cycles of breath. See what you're trying to feel like in the posture, and then you try it again without the blocks. But before we do that, let's try another one with the blocks. This might be a little high, but it's pretty good for most of us. You bring your thumbs behind the blocks. You come into downward facing dog. Inhale, shift forward, bend your elbows back, and then rest on the block. So again, you see how the butt wants to float up. You want to keep it down. I'm not really tucking my butt under. That would be easy to tuck the butt under, but you're not letting it float up. And everything's in one long line. Even here, you can see my shoulders are dropping a little bit. Ideally, I pull my shoulders slightly off of the blocks. So this tendency to roll forward isn't so great. It can cause excessive force in the shoulder socket. Then you can move the blocks out of your way. And you could do all of this on hands and knees. You don't have to do it from a full plank position. Inhale, shift forward to plank pose. Try to find that long line of energy front and back, side to side, and then bend your elbows. Instead of coming all the way down and dropping the elbows, or dropping the upper arms rather, keep the the upper arms lifted the entire time. Back of your neck is long. And then you might build strength less aggressively by pressing to a half plank here, which is another good way to train yourself in and out of a half plank. Same alignment, just a little less intensive because the knees are down. So these are some ideas. The main thing I want you to think about is not allowing the shoulder roll forward, keeping the head of the shoulder back, and not lowering so much. So you keep the 90-degree angle here versus coming all the way to the ground and kind of collapsing. Exhale, stop. And then if you're transitioning to cobra, just put the hips down, energize your legs, and there you are, right into cobra or up dog. Hopefully this gives you a better understanding of Chaturanga Dandasana, which energetically activates Manipura and the heart center. So it's a great pose when you want to build confidence and radiance and just a full feeling of being all in. Namaste.